You're watching ITG Clips.
Back in the gun here. We've teased it. We've talked about it. It's now time. Joining us is a guy who doesn't need much of an introduction amongst Mountaineer Nation at this point, let's be honest, but we're going to give him one anyways. One of country music's fastest rising stars, Morgantown native, WVU guy. You know him maybe as Mr. 14 from some of the hype videos and, of course, the now infamous hype speech that inspired a great turnaround season for our Mountaineers. One of the hottest artists in the game. He was just on the Joe Rogan podcast, biggest podcast in the world, so we figured he had to follow that up with In the Gun, obviously. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Wesley Godwin. All right.
Hey, what's up, boys?
So, Charles, we want some, we're going to talk a little music with you, a little Mountaineers with you, some war stories and memories between you and Owen. But just to get us started here, I got to know, I know you're a West Virginia guy. You're from Morgantown, right? And a lot of times when you're raised like that, the old gold and blue, it's just in your blood. But I know at the same time too, like you can probably pinpoint maybe a moment in time or a period in time where your Mountaineer passion began, right? So give us your WVU fan origin story, if you will.
Yeah, we my parents had season tickets when we were growing up, and I remember watching Mark Bolger and Amos Zaraway, and playing like tag and tackle football out in the tailgates where, before, like the first iteration of Ruby had these big grass patches in some like sections of the parking lot, and me and a bunch of neighborhood kids and all would be playing football there. I think it was the Hayden's tailgate that we'd go to. And so, yeah, I was a Mountaineer fan really ever since I can remember. And I went to every single home game from the time I was from elementary school, basically all the way through college. And then it wasn't until I started playing music that I started missing a lot of games. And, I can count on one hand how many games I've been to in the last 10 years now. That's not by choice. It's just because I had to work so much.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I've been a diehard, and my Mountaineer fandom is it's almost toxic to a certain extent because the losses affect my life, which it's good and bad. When it's up, it's up, and when it's down, man, it affects my week to week and my day to day, which kind of sucks. But it's in the blood at this point, and that's what it is.
Right there with you,
man. What we'll get into some things here, kind of I guess some of our connection, kind of what held the inspiration that I had getting the chance and the privilege to kind of jam with you guys on stage for a brief moment in time. But when can you pinpoint let's start from the beginning. What were you evolving as a musician in high school?
I didn't play music at all in high school. I didn't sing, and I hadn't picked up a guitar yet. So I was a wannabe football player, but I didn't have, I just was not gifted. I was slow, I was undersized, and it just wasn't going to happen. But, the way I've always been wired is when I want something, I go for it and I don't quit. So I kind of hung on to that, probably longer than I should. And then I picked up the guitar in college. Once I'd given up, that there was no way that I was ever going to be able to play football after high school. I picked up the guitar because I had all that free time because, there was no trying to train for it, no lifting for it. There wasn't any of that stuff going on every evening like that used to be. So I picked up the guitar as just something to start filling time in a productive way when I was in college. And then I was so fortunate to find that once I started singing, then I realized I was gifted in that way. Where, when folks have, and this is probably the way it was with you when you played high school ball, Owen, when somebody's gifted, when you're going up through middle school and high school, they glide compared to the other kids. They just make it look easy. They have talent. And then it's not until they get up to D1 and the pros and stuff like that, where they're amongst their equals, that, things change. So I never had that on the basketball court or the football field or the track, nothing. But with singing, I glided. I had a natural voice that was better than most people would ever have if they practiced and took voice lessons their entire life. And so I was able to leverage that, teach myself how to write, and then get good enough on the guitar to be able to compose songs that would connect with people. And it took almost a decade for that to happen, but I was fortunate enough to find that thing in my life that I actually had some natural talent for.
You talk about connection and how important is that, when you're in that writing process, developing a song, like, is that something that you feel after the song, or is that like you're like living inside that emotion, while you're writing that piece?
I'm living in it while I'm writing it. And when I'm writing a song, I'm writing it for me. It like I'm making myself happy. I'm connecting with myself. I'm working through something or feeling some sort of emotion that is making me feel better when I'm writing. And then it's after the fact that people just so happen to enjoy it. But if I went into writing a song like with the intention of hoping that people would enjoy it, I don't know, I probably hit like a block and just never be able to get through it. But as long as I'm writing for myself from a therapeutic standpoint, or just from a craftsmanship kind of state of mind, then it's just worked out to where, people do connect with them. And it took time. My songs at the beginning, which you've heard a lot of them, at the songwriters nights that used to be at the saloon. And then even
Absolutely.
with Union Sound Treaty, a lot of my beginning songs, they weren't very good, but it takes that in order to get to the good stuff.
I
And
think
even now I'm getting better. Like, I'll look back on some of the songs I've released probably in these first three albums and be like, oh, that wasn't so good, And if I can do that, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I almost feel like, just from a guy sitting to your left normally, um, there was the craftsmanship was there. I just think you needed some other pieces too, because you were hearing. I just felt like, man, Charles is wanting a lot of sound, man. So it was like I felt like you really needed all those pieces to really start bringing what you had going on to life. It just seems like once you kind of got, all those kind of key instruments, the music, really just, it almost seems like it's so easy now to you. Like you finally, you like reached your sound.
Hmm. Yeah, I felt like with Seneca that I was able to figure out, you know, a sound that sounded exactly like me and where I'm from. So it wasn't me trying to mimic a rodeo country Texas singer or like a Tennessee or Georgia country singer. It was me sounding like I'm from North Central West Virginia, with both sides of my family in the mountains. Like it, I feel like I found a sound that it's a perfect hybrid of the area I'm from and the way that I talk, which, it's not exactly the most southern thing either, but but it's also not like I'm from New England. It's kind of this in between, you know what I mean? So I was able to find a sound that portrayed my music in an honest way and what I'd kind of always hoped it could sound like.
Watch the whole podcast episode by clicking the link above or in the description.